Today's webinar, it's, entry signals, which is the most recent thing that we've been playing with lately. And so in today's, today's little summary is, what are they for people who don't know? Go through the settings and the requirements or required settings, some optional settings and some display options that you have available. And then I'll go over the individual settings that you're going to have as far as your ATMs and, how you want to handle your risk management, your trade, and scalping versus a little bit more, etc. So there's a couple of methods you have now available to you that were not there in the past. And then where to find it, if you guys don't know, I mean, sometimes the page gets a little heavy and thick, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you could obviously get lost. So I'll tell you right where to go for that. Talk about any kind of costs associated with it, and then questions and answers. That's when I'll turn on the mics, and so I guess you could chat anytime you want, and I do have it open so I could see a chat if anybody does want to chat something, or if you want to if you're thinking of something right when I'm at it, maybe you could chat it in there or something, and we'll come back to it later. I don't know if I'll see the chat at that time, but we will open it up. That way it'll be, in the chat will be basically your notebook. And then we'll open up the mics, and we'll answer any questions, and then we'll turn on the mics or the cameras, the microphones, all that stuff later. I don't want to have an open forum where we just chit chat, talk about some things that will that you might like to see, and or does it do this, can it do that? And as we were just talking about little pre-webinar here, we were talking about somebody asks us, when's it going to be done? And my answer to that is it ever going to be done? And my answer really is no. I don't ever see it being done. I don't ever see any algo being done, because there's always something that is going to be added. Somebody's going to come along and say, oh, it'd be really neat if you could do this. And you look at it and you go, yeah, and just keep adding it and adding it. And if anybody, for the guys that have been around a little while, you could see how many versions knock out in the course. I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of how we do it. So anyway, about me, for those of you who don't know, basically I'm just a retired fireman. I retired back in 19, a little earlier than I wanted to, but family comes first, and I retired, and I had my time in anyway. So I'm like, oh, what the heck. And prior to about 10 years of that, probably around 2007-ish, I started getting involved with, stock market and some options, and later maybe a little Forex here and there, but basically I was doing stocks and options and stuff, and fiddle farting around with that, not doing much of anything. And then somehow I stumbled across futures, and the rest is history. I mean, futures is the king. So but by no means do I want to come across as any kind of trading expert. There's a couple people in this room, one of which who I was just talking to a second ago, David, who has a lot of more experience in just had funds and all that business than I do. So I'm just go long, go short, kind of simple kind of guy. And I struggled, and I still struggle, but I have struggled with the psychological side and the emotional part of it when it comes to money, because back in 2008, 2009, when I started to get into this, it was right after the crash of 8, and my theory was, if anybody's going to lose my money, it's going to be me. Because I got tired of the broker guys saying, oh, stay in long term, stay in, and then finally, how much more heat can you take? And I just so that's kind of how the discipline manager came to fruition. It was just basically to manage me, because when I was doing futures, I was, I was trading 100 trades, 100 trades was easy, and if I can't get in now, I'll get in here, try here. And I still kind of struggle with that a little bit, but in any event, that's where all the indicators came from, and the discipline manager, reversal bars, all those others. And then of course along came the algos, and it got bigger and better as we go. And the whole market has changed. So but I still trade discretionarily, and with assistance of indicators and whatnot. And a lot of the indicators, or all the indicators that are on the chart, that are on the tools menu, I had for me, they're mine. and some of which I've incorporated into the algorithms and the bots, and some I have not. But the point of it is that they're available, and I want to say probably 70% of them are free. So feel free to download and play around with them, or at least check out the video and see what it does, see if it's of an interest. If it isn't, then I no hard feelings. Okay, so like anybody has to do all this garbage, and that's the futures and options trading, large potential risk, potential risk. You don't trade with money that you can't afford to lose. I'm not going to read it verbatim. You could pause this on your own. Hypothetical and simulated performance results have certain limitations, and we've all talked about that to length on Market Replay and strategy analyzer and whatnot. So I know you really don't want a lesson in legalities here, so we'll get right through there, but just be aware that it is there. So the reason why you are here, though, is obviously the entry signals that we're going to talk about. Now, the entry signals are based on internal logic required to establish a valid probability. All our trading is about probabilities, and so we're looking for probabilities. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but the probability of success based on some internal logic is that it's going to, we have the higher percentage in our favor, and so therefore we take it. And then due to the nature of each individual market, each indicator really has kind of turned into its own, even though on the outside it's kind of the same, but internally there are things, and as you guys know, have experienced that they really are not the same. They're each market's a little unique. And most recently, we had talked about like the minis versus the micros. They are not the same. They run parallel, yes, but they are definitely not the same. And we've talked at length at that, and I'll be more than willing to talk to anybody on that. But they are not. You have to really treat them separately with their own separate criteria and numbers. But anyway, and that's how the names were kind of derived by our pets. We were on the conversation one time, and one of the dogs was barking or something, and we turned around, or I would say turn around and said, Ruby, no, or something like that. And I'm like, hey, that's it. We're looking for names. So because we had 4 names, and so that's how it kind of came to be. So Bell is, we associated Bell with gold, and then Leo is crude oil, and Luna is NASDAQ, and Ruby is ES, and they're all dogs. So that's how come you might every once in a while hear us say, how the pets do or something like that if we're talking. But it's just nothing more than GC, CL, NQ, and ES. So no big deal. Well, anyway, so let me go into the some of the things and requirements that you are definitely going to need to do if you're new to this and haven't already done so. And that's first and foremost, you need to go to your control panel, and you have to hit the go to options, and then in options you want to go to the automated trade interface. This has to be on, and I believe when you download your freshest version, it's off, and that has to be turned on or checked on. And you don't have to do it once. Once you're done, it'll stay on for you, so you don't have to deal with that again. But if you're not getting anything on your chart, that's or if it's not taking trades, things like that, that's probably what's going to happen. So now we get into the meat of it, and these are it. They've kind of grown. Before they were smaller, but we've had to open it up because you have to have some ability to change some things. Ultimately, the game plan was to just leave pretty much everything locked down, and we didn't want things to be messed with, but we kind of had to open some things up. So you can see here, these are just the numbers that I'm using, the 750 and the negative 1250. You have to have the negative on there for a max loss. I stay away from the open. I know the default's going to be 8 o'clock to 12 is typically where people will trade, but I'm specifically looking at 8:01 because I call it flushing the toilet. The market opens, and I just want to flush all that out of there. Sometimes, like yesterday, I think it was, or maybe it was Friday or Monday, I forget what it was, right at 8 o'clock, as soon as that bell it just took off, and it was going, there was a short signal, but I wasn't turned on, so I didn't get, it was accrued, and it was beautiful, and it just never even pulled back, and so I had to let it go. But it is what it is. That's typically not the case, and I don't want to mess with it. The longs and sounds, you could do whatever you want here. I think by default it's empty. I just have a long and a short, and basically all it says is long or short, and that's simple as that. I don't want anything really long that says you know, your indicator has turned long. You know, I don't want that. It's fast. I just want a quick beep or something like that. So you could do what you want on that, and that's the typical, you know, selecting your things. Obviously, you need to have your account. You have to have an account to trade, and whether or not you have it on your chart panel, if you have your chart panel on the same account that this is trading on, you'll be able to actually see the orders. If you see or hear something go on that says order filled, but you don't see it on your chart, it's because your chart panel isn't set to that particular account. So it's running in the background, you just don't see it on your chart. So these two really have to kind of be in the same, on the same page if you want to see it. Doesn't have to be, but if you want to see it. The ATM strategies, and now again, this is an indicator, not a strategy. So the trade management portion of it is based on the ATMs. And unlike a strategy where everything's internally in the strategy, this indicator is going to rely on the ATMs. And this is your control as far as, you know, where you want to go with the ATMs. I have, you know, the 19 target and a 50, I'm sorry, a 19 stop and a 50 target for crude oil, Leo. And these are the same, obviously. Now you can make them separately if you wanted to. If you want to go into trade performance, you're able, if you enable, you know, number one and number two, or A and B or something like that. If you go to trade performance, you'll be able to narrow them down and say, just let me see the A's, or let me see ATM B, and you'll be able to split them up if you want to do it that way. But I just have the one ATM in there, and that's it. So you can do that. The default is limit. You can do market, but there's absolutely no reason. I mean, I should say it never happens. It has happened. I've seen it happen. There might be a chance where it sets up and it just takes off and it never pulls back a tick to get you. And I mean, it doesn't happen very often. Usually it fiddle farts around the area and it'll pop down a tick and grab you and get you in. But you also run the risk by doing a market orders, having a little bit of slippage. But, you know, needless to say, you could change it to market if you want. That's a guarantee in. Other than that, the limit order is certainly fine for that. Obviously, number of contracts. You know, offset's the same thing. It's just offset. It's right where it's defaulted to. Oh, and incidentally, on here there is some logic put in that if it does get put in, and for some reason the market doesn't come back for you, that will only stay around until a set amount of ticks, and then it will cancel out. It won't leave you hanging with a naked order there, sitting around. So if it gets too far away, it'll just take itself off. And if it happens to come back around again, you know, if things set up again, it would just place another order. But more importantly, it's not going to have this order hanging there that is certainly overdue or past due and expired. Number of contracts, self-explanatory. This one here is the number of trades. When you get into a zone, everybody knows the chop box and the zones, you call them what you will, the chop area. You know, you can see it easily if anybody's been trading for a little while. And so what we want to do is we want to obviously give it an attempt, because that's, you know, you never know when it's going to turn into a chop box. And even two, you know, you never know when it's going to take off. But after your second loss, I mean, I will get, you know, what's going to happen is the last one is going to win, because it's going to break out of the area. The problem is that, you know, how many, and I've seen a lot, it could stay in that area, you know, 5, 6 times. And you really want to take, you know, 5 losers, because the winner that you do get at the very end is going to just, it's not going to pay for itself. So there has to be a limit on it. But of course, you could change that. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about the settings. You could do what you want based on your, risk and what you feel necessary, and playing around in market replay, playing around in sim, things like that. You could tweak all these. So some of the optional settings here, and this is all the stop trade management part. So this stop management here is, if you click that, and by default, I believe it's on by default. I know it was off, and I think we changed it. But in any event, if it's on, that means the internal logic is going to be used. Meaning, if this is on, then it's going to be following the trail off the 55 period moving average, which, as many of you know, is what we use as our mainstay, as our EMA. Now, of course, you could change that, but that's what we're using as our mainstay, and so that's going to follow the 55 if you have that enabled. And the other one is based on the zigzag indicator, which everybody should have in their Ninja. It comes pretty standard, and that's just the back and forth deviation ticks, and that's is set for 11. But again, you could play around with what different charts for different instruments. But if you have that on, so if you only want to use the one, you could turn this one off. If you want them both, which I recommend, why not? I have them all on. So, and then this last one here is just your backup plan, I guess you can call it. If the 55 is kind of far away and this doesn't zig and zag and it just keeps zigging and doesn't pull back, your stop is left behind, trailing way back here. Price just takes off. So this is more of a safety net, if you will, and it's only going to allow 19 ticks in retracement. Now, of course, you could up that if you want, but that's that's the numbers that we're looking at, and that's the max. So regardless, if this is too far away, depending on the size of your EMA, if you made that bigger and this doesn't zig and zag, then this will back it up and trail it along 19 ticks until it gets popped out. So with that said, is that you really need to have a bigger target, because obviously if you're going to trail 19 ticks, you got to have, if your target's at 20, I mean, it really doesn't do any good. So that's why originally we were starting with just smaller targets, but especially now that the market's starting to kind of be a little bit more favorable, we're really extending that, and we're still evaluating that with some statisticals and past datas, and there's all kinds of things that we're looking at as far as how much we could squeeze out of it. But my theory is, if market giveth, we taketh, and so that's where we're at with that. So so that's on the stop match. Now, if you turn this button off, this one here, and disable that, then it's going to be going on towards your ATM management. Talk a little bit about ATM management, and I would assume a lot of people know what the ATM management is, but it's going to be based on that. So you're still going to have this no matter what, because it needs to place your stop, your initial stop, and then of course it'll trail from there with this, or if you don't have this on, it'll trail if you have it on within your ATM strategy. But a worst case scenario is your stop. If you don't have a target, you could put 0 in there. You can't put 0 in a stop, but you can't put 0 in a target if you don't want a target at all. So basically, just take that out altogether, and that's what I do manually. I'm like, who am I to say where the money? I don't know where it's going. Basically, my target's going to be my stop. So this becomes, if you don't have a target in there, this kind of becomes your target, if you will. When you get popped out, there's your target. Now you know you're high. So that's all the management part of it. Background colors, you can play with the colors depending on the color of your charts, blacks, whites, and things like that. I like the gray, light gray. On bar close, this is all typical Ninja. I turned auto scale off because with that being on, it makes the chart look a little goofy when things get scrunched up. And then the panel here is, I have this in the same input series because I don't like to have multiple panels. I know there's a lot of people that like the separate individual panel, and by all means you could click that and say, panel 2 or in a new panel. And then that way you basically, you're taking your screen and you're splitting the bottom inch or 2 inch, however much you stretch it for. That will show the indicator and allow you to just kind of break it out a little bit, so you could maybe easily glance at the arrows and what's in there. I prefer it to see in one chart, nice, clean, easy. And, you know, again, that's kind of what I like, but it's all personal preference. So, okay, enough on settings. We can come back to that because usually that might offer some questions and whatnot. I'll just look up right now. Eastern time or Central? Eastern. Okay, so there looks like David answered that. Okay, so stop losses. So we'll talk about the ATMs a little bit. I'm assuming that I don't want to go too much in depth in this, but I'm assuming that everybody's familiar with the automatic or advanced trade management systems that Ninja has. But again, stop losses are, you know, I kind of mentioned that they are similar to an insurance policy. You never want them to, you know, you never want to get in a car accident, but, you know, you're glad you got insurance if you do. So that's basically what they're there for. But nobody really knows the risk reward, you know, part of it. Everybody knows the risk part of it, but what's the reward? And that's going back to, I don't like to use, unless it's choppy, I don't like to use targets, because who knows what the reward's going to be. We can kind of figure it out, but how many times have you seen it just take off and not stop, and it doesn't even give you a pullback to get in? It just keeps going and going and going. So we can all measure risk, but we can never measure reward. So the whole mathematical formula of risk reward ratios are kind of like, I don't know, kind of hard to calculate. So in any event, the stop though is important, because the main thing is you want to protect the capital. And each market has different characteristics, as I mentioned already. So, you know, your job is to know which one, you know, which market, an instrument that you're going to be trading is going to be best for whatever size of stops or targets that you're going after. You know, again, once we start getting into automated, it's a little bit, you know, the logic is already predetermined. But when the manual, you know, you really don't want to move your stop loss, and you can a little bit here and there. You know, I do occasionally, you know, tick here and there, but for the most part, you really don't want to move it that much, thinking that you're going to get a, you know, it's going to go, it's going to go, it's going to go. My theory is just get out clean, because it's so easy to click a button and get right back in again if things change, or if you still feel that, you know, after you reevaluate and look at it and go, yep, this is still the area, you get back in again. It's not that much. So the main key is to keep the capital. That's really all there is about, you know, stops. And as far as one of the things that you will see from time to time, guaranteed, is because of the fact that we're using so tight stops, is you're going to see this from time to time. What it's trying to do is in the logic, the bot is moving the stop, but sometimes the market has already moved it. So in this case, this is a picture. You try to move that 93.15. Well, the market already went under that. I don't know if this is a long or not. And stop price cannot be moved below the market. Okay, so we try to get it underneath the market, but the market had already moved there, and the price, you know, it can't be moved there because the market's already underneath it. So unfortunately, it's a Ninja thing, and there's no way that we know as of yet to kind of get rid of it. So anytime you have a tight stop in a fast moving market, you're going to see these. All you could do is acknowledge it and say, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not really going to change anything as far as the logic behind the scenes, because on the next tick move, it will try it again. And if it's still below, you're going to get another error. And if it gets ahead of it, boom, there you go. But it's always going to use the last known stop. So it's not like it's just a nuisance. And unfortunately, you just can't get away from that right now. So a little talk about the advanced trade management, the ATMs. You know, ATMs must be used in order for this indicator to be activated. It is a requirement because it needs to have those in there. As I mentioned earlier, you could have, you know, your targets could be whatever they are, the stops, but you do have to have it. And everybody has their own risk management, as I mentioned before, so I don't have to dwell on this, but, you know, settings vary greatly. And I've seen a lot of people go, you know, say, hey, can you send me a screenshot of your settings? And so that goes back and forth in the trade group over Skype all the time. And by all means, you know, I have no problem sharing. You know, it's an open book as far as I'm concerned. So there are two types of advanced trade management for those that are still relatively new to this. You've got your quantity. And so if you want, there's going to be two places that you're going to want to change the quantity. If you're going to trade two, you want to change it in your ATM, but you also want to trade it in the indicator settings that I just showed you under the contracts. You want to have those match. So you want to put that there. And then if you did have two, you could have multiple targets, and you can do all kinds of things in here. You know, but in this case, you only have one. So you can have different levels. You can have 3 different levels of this. So you could say at, well, there's the profit target. But if you wanted to have, well, that's just, let me back up here. Let me, in any event, you could have quantity 1, and you would have target 1, target 2 if you had multiple contracts, and you could take one off at, you know, X ticks and another one off at Y ticks and so on. Now, as far as the bottom portion of it, that's this section here. So right here, if you click there and say custom or pick the one you want, that's the stop management portion of it. Now, we don't use it on this because I use the strategy or you know, the indicator the indicator's logic to do my stop. So I don't need it in here. But if you were to use this over the instrument, then you would want to have that on there. And then that takes us to the, you know, to the next level here. There's 3 different levels that you have in the stop strategy portion of it. And you can go to, you know, when it hits 1, you can go to your profit target. So when you get to, I don't know, say 20 ticks, you could go to break even plus or -1, depending on where you want it to go. And then you could do your 3 levels of stop. So when you get to, you know, 10 ticks, it might tighten up, and you might maybe just do that one time. So you can put 999 in there, and it'll just do it one time. If you wanted to do it on every tick, then let's say if you had it set for 10, as soon as it hits 10 ticks in profit, it'll start chucking away every tick thereafter, and of course you'll have a 1 tick stop loss, so you probably get stopped out. But you set this up, and I don't want to get too involved in this because there is better videos that explain it. And if you want to take a snapshot of this, if you're interested, these are some NinjaTrader how-tos. Let me see. I could actually. I don't know if I can do that. I probably can't do that. But later on, if you want to, I could put them in the Skype chat if you want the links. Otherwise, just take a screenshot and you can just go right to them. But these are how-tos on how to do the ATMs on Ninja, and then the stop management strategy. So other than that, moving forward, this is what it's ultimately going to look like, assuming you have everything filled out right. You should have your you know, under your options, you got your automated what do we call it? The automated thing checked, and you have your ATMs in there, and you have your proper account. Everything's all set up. This is what it'll go for. Now, obviously, it says it's sleeping, and, you know, it's set for this time frame. This is the version that we're running. It's also down here or over here too. Most of the time, I have this window shrunk, so you don't see this because it gets shrunk off, and you have to go to the little arrow to open it up. But in this case, it's a full screen. So, and anyway, you can see this is our 55 period moving average. You know, it's kind of simple. This one obviously didn't take because it was off. This was today, and it opened up right after the open, pretty much, and took your order in there, and you can see how the stop management is trailing. And you notice that they're not like an ATM, which is very uniform, chuck, 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 chuck all the way up. This is a little different, and it's based on the logic inside. As things change internally, it can rather open up or tighten up. And you can see it's, you know, tightening up here, and you kind of see why. It makes sense. But then as it started opening up, it said, okay, we're off to the races. Every time you change something in the in the instrument or the indicator, you need to activate it. It's going to default to pause, and it's more of a safety thing. But if you go in there and make a change, or not even to this indicator. Maybe you want to change something else in a different indicator, and you set it. You will then have to go back and make it active again. Otherwise, it defaults to pause. If, for instance, this is ready to go, this is crude, it's Wednesday, and we all know what happens at 10:30 on a Wednesday. So maybe at 10:25, you might want to come in here and hit pause. Just wait for the news to get over, and then a few minutes after the news, you can come over here and make it active again. Now, so the level 1, level 2, that's just internal logic. Level 1 will take more trades than level 2. And that's what I was saying. If you had level 1 and level 2 ATM strategies, even if they are the same, that's fine. But if they're labeled differently, you can go into trade performance, and you'll be able to break them out, and you could see what are the level 1 trades, what are the level 2 trades, and then you could decide, what you like better or how you want to work it. They default to on, but if you don't want one, you just click it and you just turn it off. So level 2s is going to have show less because it's got more scrutiny behind the scenes. But all in all, that's what it's going to be. So this is what it would look like, and the colors are just more of the higher time frame bias. This one right here, the target zones, some people use them, some people don't. It's personal preference. I like it, of course, because it's mine. So of course I'm going to say that. But the target zones, I just got so tired of coming so close to a target only for it to turn around and then go back to break even, or lose something or hit your stop or something. It's like, seriously. So what I've done is I've got the target zone, which basically everything we do is zones. It's an entry area. It's a support or resistance area. I call it zones, and that's where it comes up with I have the support and resistance zones, and the things like that. So that's where the target zone came in. It's the area. You have your target there, and basically what it does is puts a little flag on your target that says that, hey, anywhere in this area is good enough for me. And preferably you would like it to go to your full-fledged target, but if it just falls short of that and starts to retrace by X ticks, and usually it's, I forget what the default is, I think it's 6 ticks. If it starts to retrace by 6 ticks, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm close enough, I'm good enough. So what I've actually started doing, I'm kind of getting sidetracked here a little bit, but what I actually started doing was making my zones really big. So like my ATM was 50, but if you look, it's labeled 50, but if you go look inside of it, in the past, what I have done is I've made it 70. I'll give it 20. So, even right here, here's the ATM strategy, and it says it's a 19 stop and a 50 target, but actually inside of it's a 70 because this is a 20 tick zone. So if you get in that zone and you get one of those things that just start taking off, you might be able to pull more out of it. So anyway, enough said on that. You can watch the video on that if you want. But and this over here is not part of the entry signals. This is the status box. This is free. You can download it. This is probably one of my favorites. It just gives you the snapshot. You can see here we took 3 trades. Our MAE was 12. MFE is 25. If you don't know what that is, you can see me later. Join the social hour, and you'll learn. So anyway, that's what it's going to look like. So here's today. This is one of today's snapshots. Now this is not based on commissions. I do like my status box. I have all mine set for commissions. This isn't mine. But you can see that gold took it, it's cut off right here, but 806 or 804 and then 806. So boom, 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 $1,000 done. So I mean, I don't know what you're looking for, but I know, Mike, we were talking about earlier, you just trade for a little bit in the morning before you go to work. You could have turned it on at 8:01 or 8 o'clock, if you will, and you could have left for work at 8:10. Now, does it happen every day? If I told you that, that would probably be a lie. So anyway, troubleshooting. In the event things aren't working, it's not on, whatever the case is, here are some things you need to verify. One, you need to make sure you've enabled at the very beginning when I talked about that interface. You want to make sure that's on under the options menu. You want to make sure that you have the right ATM strategies chosen for level 1 and level 2, and that they're in there. They have to be created. If you left them blank, it's not going to work. You want to make sure you have your account on too. And the right account. I can't say that I have never had it happen, but I know I have had a nice trade take off. I'm like, oh, great, this is super, only to find out that it's in sin. And then there's been times where I've lost and I wished it was a sim, but needless to say, you want to have your account right. And then also check the control panel and the log tab to see if there's any files, some order information files that are typically like they're orange or red or something like that. You want to see if there's any errors in there that are, creating it. Now, more than likely, unless you're a coder and a programmer, you're not going to know what that mean. But I could be your first sense of a go-to guy that you could find me typically in the trade room in the morning, although that it's not really for an open session kind of thing. So it's not like it's a lot of talking in there, but if you have some trouble, we could do a breakout and I could certainly help you out. If not, if it could wait, social hour is the place for all that. I'm trying to kind of push all that to social hour, and I try to be in there as much as I can to help people with, settings or whatever. And then obviously, all right, I said check the log, and then as I said, the Skype traders group or social hours for your resources. So enough said on that. Really quickly, psychological and discipline. I'll just do a shameless plug for this one here. That's another indicator, or it's not even an indicator, actually. It's an account tool that allows you to, again, a lot has to do with psychology and discipline. And the discipline manager cannot, help you with your psychology, but it will help you with your discipline. And that will lead to a healthier psychology. And as we move further and further away to algos, it's all, there's going to be bad days and good days. And so this was really geared more towards manual trading. So I won't go too much more in depth in that, but there is going to be a webinar coming up if you want to sign up for that webinar. We'll talk specifically about the discipline manager, and you can go to the website there and or just ask me, whatever, and we can get you signed up for that. So more importantly, you want to know how you can download your tools here. How do you get the stuff? So first and foremost, if you haven't done this already, so you would go to the home tab, and from there you go to tools, and down to tools, these are all those instruments and indicators and things, and it goes further on down the page too, so you can scroll all the way down. There's a bunch of stuff there that may or may not be interested in, but this is specifically what you're looking for. And then from there, we have the download files. And there we talk about, the Bell, Leo, the pets. There they are right there. And I would definitely encourage you to read, watch the video at least the first time. And that's all I could say on that, because that'll probably save a lot of heartache there. And then I would, other optional indicators, I mean, you can put on anything you want as far as, moving average, Keltner channel, Bollinger Bands, all that kind of business you could do, doesn't matter. But if that's what helps, then go for it. Now scrolling on down this page, the one thing that's really important is this right here, the version update notes. You can see I just took a picture of this today. You can see we've been updating quite a bit. And I would encourage you, and as I go to the next page, basically here, and it still even goes down further. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the reason why I'm leaving it here, now at some point I'll probably have to say enough is enough, but it's the reason why I'm doing it is because I want people that might be new to read these and say, oh yeah, okay, that's new, I didn't know that, or this is what that means. There's a few things further on down, which I didn't even take a picture of, that's bold, and that talks about that ATI, the interface that I was talking about, because people weren't figuring out how to get it done. And here's some stop settings and things like that. So there's some things on there, some good knowledge. So I would definitely, but most importantly, you want to make sure you're on the right version, because they change a lot, and for good reason, for good cause. So it's really important that we do that. So starting prices, each indicator is separate, as I mentioned before. Gold and micro gold and CL, etc. They're all each independent and individual. And now currently, and we talked about this a long time, and I don't see any price in the foreseeable future, but the indicator at this point right now is 0, because it's still relatively new. This is like our introductory offer. However, due to the amount of time and the resources that have been put into this, and I can't tell you, not to mention financial resources of just over the years, but I'm talking about just the amount of time that has been sunk, we have to charge a monthly fee. There has to be a low monthly fee for this. And, I assure you, I'm not going to guarantee anything, but it'll be paid for in no time at all. How do you do that? So here, if you click on any one of these, it'll just basically show you how to subscribe to any one of them. And so if you're interested in NASDAQ, which is the Luna, you would just, or in this case, Ruby, since it's the picture, you would click on Ruby and it just comes down here and there's a subscribe button that takes you to PayPal. And you have a 7-day trial by just picking any one of these or all of them. You can get them all. And there's a 7-day trial. And I would definitely, I would want you to start your 7-day trial right away, start it today, and play with it tonight on Market Replay, play it over the weekend on Market Replay, or tomorrow if you're around during the live market, put it on sim. If you don't feel comfortable, and I don't blame you, put it on sim. Keep in mind, micros and minis are not the same, and I would definitely encourage the minis, but play around with it, because this offer that we have going on right now today is going to expire Saturday. The web page that I'm going to show you is going to come down, and it's this one right here. If you go to Trevor.com and change whatever it is to 8/29, which is today's date, 8/29, you're going to get this right here. And as I said, it's going to expire on 70. But what we're doing is we just dropped it down 30%, and we're just going to offer it for $69. But because of the fact that we're really encouraging diversifying, we've done the 4 for 3 bundle. So for $198, you can get all 4 and you can diversify. You don't have to by all means, but like today is a perfect example. It was, I think, my sim account's already timed out, but the Luna and NASDAQ and the CL Leo, we stopped out at 725, hit our goal, and it was done. And gold was 600 and change. I forget what it was. I can look at the right now on my other screen here, trade performance. But ES, on the other hand, which was Ruby, who has not really been behaving all that well, ended up negative 421. So if you're only doing just one market, and it's ES, which hasn't been performing well, you would have been down $400 and something today, at least between the hours of 8 and 12. But if you had all 4 of them, let me turn them all 4 on right now. If you had all 4 of them on, which I didn't even have running on, you would have ended up with 975 for the end of the day. The high of the day, I'm looking at it right now, was 1170.66 net. That's with commissions. So, but end of the day was 975.84 for all of them. But I didn't have that one on, and I didn't have Bell on. I only had these 2, and that's when my day stopped at 785. So in any event, we definitely encourage the diversifying, and I think any analyst always says diversifies, and there's reasons for it. So that's enough said on that. So by clicking any of those buttons, you're going to get to the PayPal. If you use that little caret and do the pull down, you'll see, be able to verify which one you're getting. In this case, it's Leo, the CL. You'll be able to download that. And but don't forget, if I don't already have it, which a lot of people have already, but if I don't already have it, I do need your machine ID. And that could be found under the contacts. If you go into contacts and there's a spot for machine ID, send it off to me. And that way I'll be able to continue after the 7 days. So that's important. So other than that, this is the information, how to get a hold of you. You can always find us in this social hour. There's the contact page that I just showed you. Skype is always a good one. Of course, there's email. And I think I'm, pretty much good to go here. So at this point, I think we can open it up to questions. And then from there, I'll talk about, our future wish list and see if anybody has any ideas for what they would like to see, or, where it's coming, where do we want to take it. So let me run through. You guys can turn on your mics, cameras, whatever. We can kind of open it back up again. I'm looking here. It says, can you send me those links? Let me do that right now. How do I do that? Figure out how to do that. I will definitely get those links. Maybe when I stop sharing, I'll be able to have access to them. No, there's got to be a way to do it. I'll get those links for the Zoom, for the ATMs. can you please send me the webinar recording? Yes, this is being recorded, except to David, because he said no. Can you send me the offer to this? Yes, it's right. Where was it? Oh, here's the page. This one here. So you want to go 829. So just key it in there. Tremper.com 829 PHP is the link. You can take a snapshot of this. I could probably just send you that link to in the addition. I will do all three. I will send the ATM videos of ninjas, and I will send you this link so you can just click on it. But just type in 829, which is today's date. So that brings us back to here. What else is there? That's good. Mention Skype group. Oh, well, Skype group. Jimmy, you could talk about it. We're in it. If you don't know where the social hour is on, the Skype group. I'm sorry, I was thinking social hour. Yes, the Skype group. If anybody is interested in joining our little family of traders helping traders, just reach out to me on Skype right here. And as long we have to, there's an invite. You know, you get a little invite. You send me an invite. You can go to the content community page and go to community. It's found there too, or you can just type that in. Basically, somehow or another, we connected Skype, and once we connected Skype, I could zip you into the room. And some people talk more than others, but it's a good resource, because I can't tell you how many times that I have been helped by people that have, you know, have questions. How do you do this? How to do that? And or just brainstorm. And I've gotten so much help off of everybody. And again, the rationale is traders helping traders. And I've seen it in the past where somebody asked, hey, what about this? Or this isn't doing that. Or, you know, can you test this? Can you test that? And we're all a big one happy family. So that's what I'm kind of going after. So by all means, there we are. So since there are no other questions, I guess we can go right into the wish list. This is one of the things that we already have right here. It's the long and shorts only. Now, you know, just like one of those quick buttons on top that allow, hey, because my instinct or my higher time frame says I only want to deal with shorts, I don't even want to mess around with longs. So you can click short only, and of course you have to unclick it at some point, I guess, too. But again, you start getting into, you know, the pros and cons of manually overriding, and the whole purpose of actually, I think Jimmy said not too long ago, he was thinking about going one way, but the bot said the other. And, you know, I don't remember who won, but the point of it is that you start overriding the logic, and it's like you're, you know, starting to second guess it. So do we really want something in there that you know, turns it into more of a manual thing? And anyway, so that's the thoughts on that. So what are your thoughts? I could even let me see, let me stop sharing. Let's see, how do I do this? Oh, check this out. I got something here. This is new. This is my new toys. Here, check this out. What do you think? Go for it. Let's see. And the winner is, oh, look at these. Do I share these results? Wow. So this is interesting. You guys, oh, well, that's not true. That's only 10 people. So that's not a fair number. Come on, guys, vote. There's a third of you voted. So I want to get at least 50% before I turn it off. So I'll go ahead and go for another minute or so. But while we sit here and talk, you guys can think about it. But in any event, yeah.
Got a quick question.
Sure.
I had to step away for a minute. I was trying to see the best time to run it was it 8 o'clock a.m. or it's up to you?
Well, it's up to you, but I mean, are you asking me or
Yeah, what's the best time to run? Like I'm doing it really, and I'm doing.
Well, statistically, you know, obviously, I think most people will tell you during market hours, you know, and typically, you know, before noon. Now, does that mean that it won't work overnight? I've seen some good stuff, you know, overnight. I've seen some good stuff in the afternoon. I wouldn't have any problem continually to run it if I didn't hit my goal. Maybe it was a crappy day or whatever, because I do think it's all about probabilities. Again, it's about probabilities. The more trades you put on, the chances are you're gonna get a winner. because the probabilities are in our favor. However, the other side to that is if you've already hit your target, then stop. Why risk it? And so that obviously has to play in it too. So if you've hit your target, you might just want to stop. If you are not hitting your target and you maybe want to let it go, I personally me, I wouldn't have a problem with continuing it throughout the course of the day, because there are some seriously good setups midday and even in the afternoon, and certainly before close. Now I'd stay away from the close, of course, but that's everybody's everybody's thing. You got to do what you want. And if you're not around, you got to work or whatever, then you might only be available in the afternoon. So, and the other thing is that do you want to stop if you hit your goal? The discipline manager, will control that. You could say, if I hit my goal, I want to continue to trade, but I do not want to give back more than X percentage. That's a separate add-on indicator. That's not part of this strategy. This is basically just, if you hit your goal, stop. So, or the time. So whether the time's going to hit, it's going to keep going until your time is hit and it turns off and sleeps, or you hit your goal, or you hit your stop for that matter. So hope that is a long way to answer a short question, but.
Gotcha, I got you.
Okay, so I got 84%. 84% of you would like to see long and short only buttons. 16% say no. So there's your answer. So I'm going to end that, and that's pretty cool. So what else do we have? Over 100. What are we talking about? Jimmy, you can sign on and read it over 100 there. Not sure what that one is. Typically running during that. Yeah, in the times there's 8 to, as just answering your question in the chat here, I'm reading. If we do not hit the targets 12 and 10 trading hours, yep, everything I just said. So we're good. Here, I'll share my results. You guys can see that if you're interested. So now, just because 84% of you say you'd like to see them doesn't mean you're going to get them. We're just, taking a survey, and I thought it would be pretty cool to put a little poll up there, Just speaking of that, now that I've got my little game on here, check this out. Since we have a bunch of you in here, answer that one. I'm curious to see where we're at here. Interesting. Okay. Wow. Come on, a few more of you. I bet you some people left. All right. Well, I guess I could. Oh, they're still straggling in here. Okay. 66%. Come on, you stragglers, give me a number. I'll give you a hint. Not one person said under a year. So that means we're dealing with people that have been, which makes sense too. I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense. You got to get your feet wet there. All right. All right. Well, let me share these results with you. End poll and share results. There you go. You should have those on your scene. Anyway, basically the winner goes to 2 to 5 years. So 2 to 5 years is not new, I wouldn't say, but certainly got your feet wet. So I will stop sharing that. And I think I'm done here. So I could probably, is there anything else that we want to go over, as far as the brainstorming and wish list kind of thing? You guys could talk.
Hey, Steve, could I just make a quick comment?
Oh, no. Yes.
It's versus the long and short button.
Okay.
A couple of weeks ago, I put in the Skype group that I had been trading in sim for about 3 weeks, and I just let them run, no
Yep.
manual intervention.
Yep.
And I meant to post, and Jimmy asked if I'd post results. I said, yeah, I'm planning on it. But I've just been absorbed in a project at home, and I haven't done it. I haven't even downloaded a new version. But one of the things I was going to post was the only thing that made money by itself. Now, let me preface this. This is a mid-July version, and that was back when NQ was 13 range, which you're not using anymore. So
Right.
this information may not mean anything, but during that period of time from July 18th to August 10th, the only thing that made money was NQ shorts. Everything else lost money. If you look at NQ by itself, once again, this is 13 range.
Yeah.
I made $2,500 on shorts, and I lost $455 on longs.
Huh.
And I found that extremely interesting. I don't know, maybe the market was strange that time, but one thing I'm planning on doing going forward, when I download the newest version, is I'm gonna keep running a version in sim just so I can monitor, is there a bias for long versus shorts. And it was only 55% profitable, but there were 11 more trades. There were 51 losers and 62 winners. Just those 11 winners garnered $2,500 of profit in that approximately 3-week period. So, and in general, the market was going up. So it's not like the market was going down. In general, the market was going up, and yet shorts were the only thing that were profitable. So I'm very much in favor of a long and short button, but I would keep monitoring it to see if that was still valid.
Well, here's my thoughts on that. And these are just my personal thoughts. And we talked earlier on about, is it ever going to be done? And my answer to that is no, because I'm thinking, and without doing any kind of analysis like that, if you're looking at a larger time frame, and I don't know what larger is, I don't know if it's a 55 a day chart, maybe a weekly or something, or a daily chart, I don't know. Heck, it can be a yearly, whatever. Especially now that we're entering this kind of turmoil now with our environment that we're in right now with the economy and all that. There's a lot of speculation of where it might go and all that kind of stuff. So my point of it is that it's got to be based on, it's just easier to go in a certain direction. When Fed's when giving out money to everybody for free and all that, it's going to go up, 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 and you can't fight it. You're just gonna, sure, you can take a short to get to the long, but for Pete's sake, you're gonna go long. So it's just too hard to fight it. So the problem though is, what is the magic higher time frame? What's the higher time frame? I don't know. So I think maybe at that particular time of, would you say July, that maybe we were in a higher time frame down market, and so therefore they were just easier to take. They always say you take the escalator up and the elevator down. So maybe it's just easier to do that way. But when we're in a really bull market, maybe that's it too. When we're in an official bull market, maybe longs would be easier. And when we're in an official short market, then shorts are easier. I don't know. But my theory is that it's an algo. So why can't we program those higher time frames in for the bias? So in other words, if let's call it the weekly, let's say in the last 5 days, if our bias has been up, then we might put a little bit more emphasis on the longs, and the shorts might have a separate target. Why do they have to be all the same target? Why not have, if the bias is with us, we have a bigger target. If the bias is against us, we have a smaller target. Just take a smaller one. That's all things to evaluate, and talk about, and tweak, and it could all be done. It's a bot, for Pete's sake. You just got to do the logic. But the question is what's the logic? And that's half the battle. Is what is the logic?
Yeah. But Steve, so think about it in these terms. There's a lot of people who believe that if we're in a trending up day at your close at 11 o'clock, you're more likely to have a short than a long. So I would only want the shorts during that period. So I could stop my overall bot and only run it for shorts from 11 to say 11:40.
Yeah, I think these are all valid points. Thanks for the feedback. Definitely, we will look into it. But remember, most of the logic that went into the signal generators is based on you guys' request. You were the guys that were driving this. You wanted complete hands-off kind of an approach, which is the whole reason we went to greater lengths to understand the biases, understand what timeframes to select for which instrument and all that. And finally, we put this in. Now, if you guys are saying that, well, in spite of that, we want more control over which direction the trades should be taken, I guess we can absolutely look into that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I guess we can maybe start looking into providing you something like only longs or only shorts or some directional based control flags over there. But you would have to be extremely active and you would have to be accurate as well, because for some reason, if you, the human, decides on a wrong, inaccurate market direction based on whatever reason, then you are essentially forcing the bots to take trades in your biased direction. It could be right or it could be wrong. And also remember, biases change several times throughout the day. Generally, in the morning, there is a bias, then European close, there is a bias, and then, doldrums ending, there is a bias, and then closing time, there's a totally separate bias. So you, the human, have to be extremely active in changing the biases. Otherwise, if you tend to forget to change the bias, then, and if you leave the bot active, the bot is going to take trades in the bias that you set. And it could be wrong, it could change, and, so that is the risk that you would run into. But from a feature perspective, I guess we can provide that. It's not super complicated to do that. It's just, we're just trying to protect you guys as the traders. Hope that makes sense.
Make good sense. A question here. I know you say it's never going to be finished. So let's say that we got an upgrade coming in about next week. Would I get an email saying I got to go back and upgrade it?
Good thing
before I
you
turn it
mentioned.
on?
Yeah, let me talk about that real quick. Good thing you kind of mentioned that. Oh, by the way, if you guys want to turn your videos on, we can turn it back into our social hour and kind of chat with each other and get to know each other. But I got the new constant contact thing that I'm still toying around with, and so I'm still inexperienced. So you might actually maybe get too many. What I ultimately like to do is I want to be able to have different lists. So in other words, because you're not going to be interested in everything, right? So let's say you're interested in entry signals. So you would be able to click entry signals. And if you're interested in this, that, or if you are interested at all, you would click all. But the point of it is that when something is coming up and relating to rather an update version or maybe a new video, whatever the case may be, that you would be able to get this email specific to that particular need. So right now I'm kind of reluctant to putting out all these emails and bombarding people, because I know I hate it. I don't want to bombard people with emails on stuff that they don't even care about. Not everybody cares about the entry signals. Not everybody cares about the discipline manager. And so I don't think it's wise for me to just bombard everybody and that's why I do put the updates on the market. So you could at least, take a little bit of initiative to kind of go look at the web, see if there's a new version on there, because it's right on there. It says current version, bada boom, bada bang. And then if that's what you got, don't worry about it, then just leave. But or at least at minimum it's Skype. But on the other hand, there's 100-something people in Skype, and I can guarantee you, 80% of them don't care about entry signals. And if all I'm doing is just putting out things saying update, 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 they're like, it's like, it's not what it's about. It's about, traders helping traders and things. And yes, we're going to talk about certain things, but I don't know. I don't. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to try to get there. So it's coming. It's a work in progress.
So just check the website.
For now, yeah. And then eventually, if you see a list on there that you can get on that's specific to your needs, then you click on it and then I'll go that way. Because that way I can only send things to people that want them.
Yeah, one other thing I also wanted to add, guys, was, just about when is it going to end? When are the updates going to stop? Most probably they are never going to stop, because like Steve was saying, we developed these bots for ourselves, right? And we kept adding features to it, one after the other, like pretty much every single week. And then we were like, initially we wanted to manually trade, and because I'm a big manual trader, I manually trade every single day, and Steve does some days, but Steve is more into automation. And I heard from you guys as well, we heard feedback. It was very clear and crisp that you guys wanted automation, more of it. And you also wanted better position management. Initially, we thought, well, entry signals are only supposed to put you in a trade and you're supposed to manually manage your own trades. But obviously the feedback was different, and we were like, okay, fine, let's start adding position management into it. So now you have custom position management, and we only have 3 options there, like, based on zigzag, which is kind of like swing highs and pivots kind of thing. And then we have max retracements, and we also have some EMA based things, but that doesn't mean that's the end of it. We could potentially add more options to it depending on what works in the market. And let's say if some of you guys come back to us and say, hey, this actually works better, then we're more than happy to add that, right? And some of you guys are like maybe big risk takers. You want to give more room for the instruments to run towards your target. And right now, the 3 stop management techniques are clubbed together, and they operate in a best stop scenario. Now we could do worst off scenario, or we could add 5 more stop trailing strategies over there. So there is no end to it. Now, obviously, we're not going to produce versions every single day, because it's going to be very difficult for you guys, and equally for us as well, to produce and keep them updated across all the different accounts that we're trading with. But that does not also mean that we're not ever going to make more updates. I think this is a live project. There will be updates going forward into the several months or maybe years to come.
Years.
Hopefully.
Mhm.
And also another thing to add here is, just because we are going for longer, like larger targets, like in the case of crude oil and gold, we're like 19 ticks or 18 ticks of stop or something like that. And then we have 50 ticks of targets. Steve is a big fan of not having a target at all, because today we took a 50 tick target, but crude went on to 100 ticks. You could say, well, I just want 21 ticks, or I just want 50 ticks, or I just want 100 ticks, or I just don't want any freaking target over there. Let the stop be the exit point. You could decide whatever you think is right, however you have been doing, because most of you guys have 2 to 5 years of experience, so which means you know what you're dealing with. You know these instruments. Some of you guys might know these instruments very well, much better than what we know, right? So depending on what your personal inclination is, depending on what your risk criteria are, depending on what your account sizes are, whether you're doing micros, whether you're doing minis, depending on all of those different factors, you decide what's right for you, right? The indicators are only going to give you options and rock solid signals. Now, obviously, some days when it's a choppy day, smaller targets win. Right? If you have a 20 tick target on CL, for example, or a 20 tick target on GC, and GC and CL and NASDAQ and all these guys are in a choppy situation where they're only giving you 30, 40 ticks, 25 ticks, you're going to win with smaller targets. right? But in trending days, like for example, today, or look at the markets yesterday evening. My goodness, GC gave like 4 signals or so back to back. All of them went for 5 points, right? Just like literally yesterday evening, right after market open and overnight, right? So if it is a trending day, then the larger targets in this advanced stop management, giving it more room, will absolutely do wonders. And if it is a choppy day, smaller targets do wonders, right? So it all depends on what the day context is, how it is operating. You decide what's good for it, you know? So these are just options that are available. You can do whichever way you want to go. Some people are like, well, I just want $100 a day, like Daryl, right? Just want $100 a day. Well, set your target for 10 ticks a day and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be done in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Most probably within the first hour, there is always a trade, at least one trade, like
Yeah.
within the first hour. So, yeah.
So what's your thought? I'll ask you that, ask everybody here. What's the thought on the open? Now, some people say, stay away from it for a little bit. I just want to stay away with it by a minute, because that open, it just, for some reason, it just goes nuts. Whatever probability you think you have is just thrown out the window based on all these orders flushing the market. So I know we say 8 to noon, but does that mean 8:01, 8:05? Do you guys wait? I know, Jimmy, you said the first 20 minutes. You don't trade the first 20 minutes. So I don't know anything.
Actually, a really good trader had me change that I don't trade until 10:20. Let the market define its trend. And this
No.
guy takes thousands out every day.
Yeah, but I'm assuming he's looking for bigger. He's probably holding overnight too, right? Like the ANT.
No, he's not a holder overnight. He's a scalper, and he waits till 10:20. The markets define their trend for the most part for the opening range, and it's been working out for me for a bit. I get jealous because I see guys making money by 10, and I'm still on my hands, or as I call it, hands in pockets, hip. Yeah, I don't know what time you want to force it to start.
Well, just, yeah.
For that 3 weeks that I had data, by far, when I looked at the half hour, and this was running, from 6 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock the next day, by far, the best half hour on NASDAQ was 10 to 10:30 in the morning. During that time period. Whether that means anything, I don't know.
Interesting. I'd have to look at the, I need to get, a whole boatload of data, to really throw it in the spreadsheet and really kind of peel, which I haven't done in a while, but maybe I'm due for it, is to actually peel it down and really kind of dive into the spreadsheet and really figure out what the best hours are, on averages.
That particular half hour had profits of $1,938. So almost everything else evened out between losses and wins. But for some reason during that time period.
Are you talking about Luna, or you're just talking about in general NASDAQ?
This was strictly NASDAQ.
Okay, so regardless of what it was, it's just okay. No, I'm talking about your entry. So are you basing this off Luna, the entry signals, or is just your own trading or your own?
Oh, no. It was Luna.
Luna, okay.
Luna running by itself, 13 range,
okay.
Entry time. That half hour had the biggest, I could share my screen if you want to look at the chart, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said,
I don't know.
Markets change all the time, and maybe that time, maybe today it's a different half hour that's best.
Yeah, I haven't really evaluated it like that, but it's good to know, and certainly things you want to evaluate. But
I'm going to, when I download the latest version, in fact, I've never run a crude or gold, so I'm going to have all 4, and I'm going to have them on I'm gonna have, running sim so I can do analysis and to just see what's the market doing. Now, I'm also gonna, start trading live, of course, but, in addition to live, I want to do sim so I can look at these data points and see, is the market changing?
Right.
Are longs working? Are shorts working? What's the best time? Because
Right.
market's changing all the time.
Yeah, I know, but I do think we're getting into a better season, so. But I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording and we'll just turn it into our typical social hour. If anybody has any questions or, just open it up. But I think for the most part, the webinar, I'm going to close off here then. So